Would you say, had it been a white person was in the place of Jacob Zuma, this judge would not make the same judgments he is doing at this point in time? And would you say apartheid is still being carried out in South Africa?
What they are trying to tell us is that if a crime has passed, it should be forgotten. That is what we learned from the erection of the Constitutional Court, which was opened in 1994. It states that all crimes before should not be considered. So that simply means that after the 1994, if there's any other crime, then the Constitutional Court will visit it and then pass the law according to it. So I want to know whether these crimes truly should be forgotten, because the families of the people that were being hurt, the 300 children that were killed at the Soweto uprising, the Beko that was killed in 1997, Solomon Kalushi, Mandela's jail for 27 years, and many other individuals that were disappeared due to the apartheid regime. Do they want to tell us that these families have also died in South Africa, or they are all in history, or they are all past? These crimes are still living, and these crimes are still fresh, and the South Africans are still suffering the oppressions of the opiums and the chains of which the white minorities are still causing in South Africa. Before I'm coming back, I'm going to explain in details so that the people of South Africa and the people who are watching should understand why it is the way it is and how we are moving forward, because we must overcome these struggles, and we must see that South Africa is in the hands of the South African people. Our approach is not we are non-racial in our approach, but all we are saying here is that our position should be respected, and we should learn to live together in mutuality and equality and justice. So if justice has come in South Africa after 1994, we should understand that they are still living memories before 1994. So we cannot play politics where a democracy or a justice system which only seeks to indict the black people. Are you not? Do you know how many white families owned property, estates, mines in South Africa, including the gold mines? You are talking about families. In South Africa, you are talking about families. Resources are all controlled by white minority. Is that not a crime on its own? That foreigners will come in your own country, stifle your economy, seize your lands. Those lands were supposed to be refunded back to the people of South Africa, and that is another area which the people of South Africa are agitating today, because the South Africans are without jobs. They have no jobs. They have no businesses, because all the economy is stifled at the level of the white minority. And we understand why it is this way, and that is why we are conducting this independence struggle in mobilizing the youth and the population and the masses of Africa, so that they themselves can become masters of their destiny. Because at the level of our government, it's like an accident has occurred, where we are in a state of an emergency, where a country elected a few people to represent them, called the government, and now the governments are faced with an emergency and accident. So we cannot rely anymore on the minority, which I call the government. We need to fall back on the masses that elected this government, that they now at this point needs to be the one to be able to be masters of their own destinies and to decide a way forward for their own nation. We cannot allow anymore at this junction where a minority continues to dictate and begin to make policies without considering the opinions of the masses. We need a collaboration here with those that we call the elect, with those that we call the government. We need an account. We need to understand the decisions and the policies which are put in place. Are they the ones that protect the interests of the people? We need to understand all these things. So at this point in time, Africans are going to govern themselves in order to face what is coming from the Western counterpart.
Now let's make a shift away from Jacob Zuma and look at what is happening on the ground at the moment. We have protesters, those who have now taken seized the opportunity to loot shops, to destroy property infrastructure. This is something that is kind of recurrent in South Africa. Do you think people always wait for such an opportunity when there are protests to loot shops, and how is this the best way to go about it?
Looting You see, we are struggling to organize the protests in South Africa and to give South Africans a broader view on how to go about what they are protesting for and how they are going to achieve their goals. We understand that we are dealing with a population of very mixed and how will I put it, starved individuals. So things like this is normal in every civil conflict, but this is not what we are encouraging the South Africans to go in for. We are asking the South Africans to look at the bigger picture, to look at the future of South Africa, and to look at their younger generation. What is the legacy they are going to build out of this? How are they going to go from here? So we need to look at the bigger picture, that we are here to free South Africa for South Africans. We are here to see South Africans being able to build their own country in the spirit of the people of South Africa. If the whites are going to continue living in South Africa, it should be based on these things which I'm talking. They should give the people of South Africa the priority and their birthright, understanding that these are the people belonging to this nation. So what we are asking the people of South Africa is to present their protest, present their struggle with a better argument. Birthright is a natural God-given thing to all men. All men are born with honor. It's not something that can be granted to you. It is not something that can be taken away from you, but it must certainly not be lost. So we are calling on the South Africans to regain back the honor of their founding fathers, the spirit of their nation, and the voices of their people, to build a legacy that is going to live after them. So it is not only here about Zuma, but it's about restoring South Africa for South Africans. This is very important for us to understand. And also I want the people of South Africa to also understand that violence is not going to be what is going to be a solution for us. We cannot try to solve a problem by spoiling another thing. We cannot try to fix one thing by spoiling another. We should compose ourselves and understand that, we are all standing with you, and the Africans abroad, home and abroad in Cameroon, we are all standing with the people of South Africa to see that South Africa also emerges from what it has been suffering for all this year. So we are not going to encourage people for looting, but at the same time, you are dealing with the kind of population like I described. This is the same scenario all over Africa. When you keep a people down, 85% of a people's population for so many decades under poverty, you will always expect a resistance, rebellion, and civil conflict. And that is where we are getting all the rise of the Boko Haram, the jihadis, that the media is propagating them to look like terrorists. But those are individuals that are fed up with the system and the government that have not been meeting the demands, and the demands of the people are not being met by their government. So these people are now picking up arms. They are now picking up, building up resistance to fight against their government. And today the West, because it sees their interest, that if the governments are no longer there and these rebels take over those countries, they lose their interest in those countries, and then they begin to call them terrorists, as we also saw with Gaddafi. The media has built propaganda for so many years. We saw with Saddam Hussein, the media still use the same means in building propaganda, how these individuals. It is the same in South Africa. I remember when Mandela went in the period of the apartheid regime, he went to meet the international community. The first country he met was the Americans. The Americans refused to support Mandela to free them away from the apartheid regime. And as a matter of fact, the Americans were supporting the apartheid regime to repress and to oppress our people in South Africa. It was Cuba and Libya that gave Mandela the support morally, physically, financially. And at one point, it became a problem with Mandela of supporting Cuba and supporting Libya, because they claimed that they were fighting, they were countries that were organizing terror groups in their country. So we need to get past this level where media has deceived a lot of people with propaganda. It's the same strategy they are using with Zuma. Today, Africans are turning against Africans because media have said Zuma has done so, Zuma has done so. Why is the same media in South Africa not propagating what the white apartheid regime has done and they are still doing? Why is the media not propagating all the properties, the resources, the mines, the gold, the diamonds in South Africa? Why are they not propagating those ones? Go to Angola, is the same thing. Go to Mozambique, is the same thing. Go to Sierra Leone, is the same thing. Congo, Chad, everywhere in Africa is the same thing. We need to understand at this point that where we are if we as Africans do not understand that we have crossed the age and the point of depending on a government that is faced with a very gruesome enemy, and our governments are bleeding, it is a time where our masses need to come together and understand that if we do not rescue our leader, if we do not rescue our government, we become victims because they are trying to make a good decision at the detriment of their people. Where they are, at the matter of fact, they can bring no change anymore to the African people. Those that tried to stand up alone, like we saw with Magufuli, they removed him out of the way. We saw with Gaddafi, they removed him out of the way. If there's any president in Africa that is still surviving, know that there are some small strings attached. But I'm calling on the youth population that at this point, when a man's father becomes physically weak, the son has to help the father. That is how our governments are today. They are dealing with the United Nations. They are dealing with EU as independent nations in Africa. They don't have strength. They don't have power. We need young youths who can run with a vision, who can run with vision both physically and mentally. People who know what is good for themselves. And that is why you realize that most revolutionaries are all mainly young people who have the energy, physical energy here at this junction. Dealing with what we are facing today in Africa is very vital. We need the energy of our masses to understand that a time has come where all Africans need to find a common need to bind them together. Go in America, Africans are still treated the same. Africans, Americans are still treated the same. Go in the Caribbean, they are still treated the same. Jail sentence for a black man and a white man is never equal. Ask anywhere, they will tell you. So we are saying that it is a time where we all have seen that our problem is common. It is on the basis of this common problem that we need to come together and build a united front. Respect will only come when Africans are united. Respect will only come when Africans come together. True leadership in Africa is only going to be born when Africans and Africans come together and decide the leaders that are going to represent them on the basis of their demands, so that these leaders become accountable to the people and to their masses, and they work together in order to achieve a common goal. But when we begin to allow leaders who go in front and never come back to his people, leaders who go and close the door and begin to negotiate with other parties because their hands are tied up there, it is a time where I'm saying that the population right now, we are going to step forward into that global front so that they should understand that if we are going to deal with them, it should be on the basis of equality. So because I've realized here that somehow number number here counts a lot. That is the way I've seen it.
Okay.
In South Africa, we are seeing how minority, about, if I'm being very precise, about 3 million South African whites are controlling 35 million South Africans. How is it explained? They have the United Nations behind them. They have the EU behind them. They have the NATO behind them. They have even the AU behind them. They have 4 structures that compromises the entire Asia, Europe, Russia, America. All of them are together in the small white minorities in South Africa. So we cannot allow our government to deal with people who are only, they come on the surface of the earth like a small stone, but under the earth they are mighty giants. So we need to tackle this friendship or how I call it, relationship, on the basis also on equality. So this is what we are saying, that we are calling for justice in South Africa, and we are saying that if the white minorities want to freely live in South Africa, they should return back what belongs to the people of South Africa, so that the economy should be run as well equally with the opportunity of the young South Africans that are emerging today.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Atame Bako. How would you explain, or how would you describe the lives of blacks over there in South Africa?
In general, the condition of the black people in South Africa, the majority of the black people face a very large inequality, and also they form part of the people that live under the poverty line. So it is true that black people are the definition, or have taken up the face of poverty in South Africa. Whilst on the other hand, the economy being under white control, transformation of the judiciary in general, I cannot sort of deny that it is also a challenge. There are challenges that they are facing as the judiciary that they need to deal with.